and he has published many articles as well. He is also winner of Insonian of American Award in 2019. So I invite you, sir, for giving the introduction about the Society of Cardiac Nurses. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Parul. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As you know, like today, we are in the fifth webinar of this series with the collaboration of the this CBS Publishers and Nursing Teacher Association of India. And this is our fifth activity with this collaboration. And we have started this series, this kind of advanced nurses practice. I think we got very good response from all over India, across the country. So that's why we are continuing, and in the future also we have the many more program regarding this. When we talk about the Society of Cardiac Nurses, it is a national level society which include almost 19 states of India currently, and it is an academic society registered under the Society Registration Act 1860 on 19 February 2020. And last year, on the day of World Heart Day on 29 September 2020, we have inaugurated our society with the tagline, "Hands caring hands for healthy hearts." And our aim of this society, Society of Cardiac Nurses, is to provide facility for continued growth and development of the nursing professional in terms of excellence in research, quality patient care, practice, and will make skillful nurses for patient care across the country. And our aim to collaborate with international and national scientific societies and professional organizations to provide short-term training courses and fellowship for the nurses. And we have succeeded in this way also, because we have collaborated with the TNI Delhi branch, we have collaborated with the Indian Resuscitation Council, and we have conducted many webinars with some foreign speakers also. So, and they are interested to join our society, and we have many more things we are going to do in the next year. Until now, we have completed, I think, 3 courses we have launches from our society. Initially, we have started, the first course was the perioperative cardiac nursing course. And we have, after that, we have the ECG capacity building course for the nurses. And just now, one month before, we have completed our research methodology and statistical analysis for the nurses. And during COVID, we have organized one very important lecture from the Dr. L.H. Kotekar regarding the vaccination and the immunization of the COVID. So like that, we have every time we do this kind of academic activity. Now we are on this series. For this, we have the 2 eminent speakers from India and from abroad. So I welcome Ms. Suzamol Suvin. She is an advanced clinical practitioner and from Manchester University. And in Indian concept, we have the Dr. Rita Lakhani. Ma'am is the principal in D.Y. Patil School of Nursing, Mumbai. So welcome you all the eminent speaker. And so I won't take much more time, because as you know, until now we have most of the members, we have the 19 states of India. Every day, as we are doing this kind of program, even membership will also
Warm
be
introduction
so
about
thank
Society of
you
Cardiac
all.
Nurses, as I'm also part of the Society of Cardiac Nurses, so I feel really proud and very great in listening to all these achievements for their project. Thank you, sir. Now, moving forward, it gives me immense pleasure to Dr. L. Gopichandran, founder of Sir is New Delhi, professional for all the nursing community across India. He is also president of TNI.
And once again, welcome you all for our 5th webinar series on advanced nurse practitioner paving way in India. And also again, I welcome you everyone, President and Secretary and all the EC member of association, and again, Dr. Farouk and their EC members from NT program. I think everyone know that we aware that also that our nursing midwifery commission is coming up. It is in the parliament to approve. and everyone looking forward that what is to be there and how that going to change in the professional development, especially nursing, the future of nursing in India, how it's going to be there after the once we taken up this our commission. That is one of the most important key in that commission is we already seen that that is the ANP and advanced clinical nurse practice. One of the key component it's going to come up through the commissions. So just I want to key highlight on that how the existing our system of nursing in India as compared with another country. As we know that I am also almost completed being a teacher 20 years right now. I have seen myself for last 26, 27 years being a student and the different level of positions in nursing and also be that today the representative of TNI. There is a growth. That growth is like we have the different education program in nursing, and we have started diploma, BSc, and all MSc, doctorate. I am able to see the MSc nurses working in the clinical, and they are very competitive and doing the best as per compared with other nurses. That also that one of the quality of nursing care which is delivered by the high level degree nurses in the clinical setting. These all the outcome I can see through the education. At the same time, we are also very much worried about the scope of the practices through the education. Even some of the practitioner schools in the critical care started, but we didn't convert them to be the practice because of the limitation through the system. Like me, like Ani madam, they are going to also speak their experience about the different contexts, how the ANP in existing in UK by Dr. Suja, and in India, what we are looking forward in India, led by Rita Lakshmi. This is going to be the another many webinar series throughout many events in coming up. But one thing you have to clearly to understand that. So this is not a webinar for giving the knowledge, it's a kind of sensitization among nurses, which you're looking forward in tomorrow, how India and nursing to be, existing or going to be changed, a reformation going to happen in nursing to the way the career development for the nurses, especially the clinical nurses, because the other country look into that clinical nurses are how they empower only, that is going to empower on the complete system in the nursing. Because we have the system, like we have the degree, we have the positions, but it's not the way which you are expecting what you are doing at in other countries. That is really disappointing our nurses, and it's not have the exactly what the career development should be happening in India. It is not happening. So that's why we this kind of activity program webinar, we sensitize ourselves and sensitize our leader to take up, and also they're taking the input from leader. Today, Dr. Alita is one of the very senior most nurse educator administrators here. She can give concern about how she's looking and her vision to develop or overcome that issue which is not happen at the ANP not happening in India. So I hope that it's going to be the very useful, and I think we are expecting that the outcome which will be happen very soon through the nursing and midwifery commissions. And once again, thanking you for invited me, and over to Parul to continue the program.
Thank you, sir, for this eye-opening theme introduction. So by God's grace and by our combined efforts, maybe the time will come where we will also have the recognition of the advanced clinical practitioner in India as well. So hoping for that, now I will invite our next speaker, who is a leading name in the teaching field of nursing, who is the president of Nursing Teacher Association of India, who is currently principal at the Academy of Nursing Sciences and Hospital in Gwalior. So he's Dr. Farooq. He is master's and PhD holder in medical surgical nursing. Sir has over 15 years of experience in teaching, and he has participated in various workshops. He has been appointed as external practical examiner by various reputed universities. Sir, I welcome you in the webinar, and invite you for the brief introduction about Nursing Teacher Association of India. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Parul ma'am. Good evening, one and all present here on this virtual platform. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. L. Gopi Chandran sir, because sir is one of the ideal person for my life also, because every time he suggests me what I have to do, what we have to do in the nursing. And sir has only given the chance to our association to make collaboration with Delhi TNA branch as well as with the Society of Cardiac Nurses. And I would like to thank with to the this CBS publication, because they are sponsoring our nursing professional for to making arrangement of like this webinar. And really, I'm very much happy. I was listening with the Neeraj Kumar sir, because whenever I used to listen that some nursing personnel are working in a reputed means positions. Really, I'm by the heart I can say I get very happiness, means like that. Today, the eminent speakers we can see here, Dr. Rita Lakhani ma'am, and another speaker from the UK, Sujamol Subin ma'am. Welcome you, ma'am, because you have given a valuable time for this webinar to enhance the knowledge regarding the advanced nurse practitioner paving in India. And this is a 5th webinar of our advanced nurse practitioner. And regarding the NTI, I would like to say, one of the dream I have seen that all the nursing professional must get one platform that everyone knows, every nurse must know everyone to each other. So for that, the planning I did, and for that, in 9th of the January, when we are celebrating our 4th Foundation Day, our Nursing Teacher Association, we are launching Nursing Directory. In that Nursing Directory, we are including all the nursing professional in teaching line. Their email ID, their contact number will be there. And in collaboration with the Vocera publication, we are doing for that in the Nursing Directory, as well as we are launching a recruitment agency. In previous that webinar also I have told. So 9th of the January, we are launching recruitment agency, and it will take a very minimal charges from the nursing professional, but provide the position, provide the recruitment in their desired places. Now we are doing the private places only, not only in India, but also from the, but also for the abroad. And one more thing, please to know that we are having the members not only in India, from the abroad also, the many of the nursing professionals are joining with us. In India, we have completed 22 states, and not only the states, union territory also, the peoples are joining with us. One of the example, Dr. Maria, she is a president from the Pondicherry branch. And another, the Miss Salvina, she is a president from the Chhattisgarh branch. So likewise, we are doing because of the blessing of all the seniors and the nursing professionals. So I will not take the much more time, so we can proceed this webinar. So Parul ma'am, please, you can proceed the webinar. Thank you so much. Thank you to all.
Thank you, Farooq sir, and it gives also us immense pleasure to know about the achievements of NTA. And we congratulate you for launching on 9th of the January, and we wish luck to the association for doing good work in future as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So now the main section of our webinar, which is it is the time to call upon our prime speaker, Ms. Sujamol Subin ma'am. Ma'am is advanced clinical practitioner at NIHR Wellcome Trust Clinical Research Facility at Manchester, UK. So at Amesonian, it is a very proud moment for me to speak about ma'am, because ma'am is a BSc holder from AIIMS, New Delhi, and she started her career in 2002 as staff nurse in neurosurgery ward. Then ma'am moved to UK, and she did her MSc in Advanced Practice Health and Social Care in 2014 from University of Stanford, UK. Ma'am is registered nurse in NMC UK and nurse independent prescriber at NMC UK. Ma'am has over 16 years of experience in clinical research, where she is actively involved as sub-investigator in multidisciplinary team of research, facilitating medical care and review of participants, performing safety assessment, prescribing IMPs, interpreting the investigations. Ma'am has got various relevant publications in UK Clinical Research Facility Symposium and Annual Conference since 2012 till date, emphasizing on various aspects and challenges involved in advanced clinical practitioner in clinical research. Ma'am has delivered a prestigious oration in reputed forum of NIHR Clinical Research Nurses meeting on 2013. It was about her journey towards advanced practitioner role in clinical research facility. We heartily welcome you, ma'am, and it is our pleasure to listen from you. So over to you, ma'am, for your upcoming session.
Thank you so much for your kind introduction, and it's a privilege and honor to be with you all in this meeting with lots of eminent speakers from India. And once again, I thank you for your invitation. I'm just going to share the screen. I would kindly ask everyone to mute the microphone, please, because there were some noises coming in between. So I'm just going to try to share the screen.
I request you all to kindly mute yourself, and we will have a question and answer round after ma'am's session. You can use the chat box and you can use the raise hand option. We will allow you to unmute and ask your question. Thank you, ma'am.
Can you all see the screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so as per your introduction, my name is Suja Subin. I am an advanced clinical practitioner working in clinical research in UK. So a little bit about my background. So I studied BSc Honours Nursing in College of Nursing AIMS. I completed my graduation in 2000. I'm very proud to say always that I am an AIMSonian. The education was second to none. So we had an enormous opportunity to get trained in a very high quality nursing care, leadership and management. Today, where I am now, that has helped me to develop my role in the UK as well. So once I've completed the course, then I worked as a staff nurse in neurosurgery for 2 years. So it was, as you all know, there's a trend at that time, there was a trend like going abroad after you've completed your course. So I followed the trend. That was one thing, was following the trend. The second thing was the opportunity, career development opportunity. The third thing was economic stability. These are the three things which made, I think, any nurse who qualified from AIMS to move abroad. I think that could be the same for any nurse who wanted to go abroad. One is your career opportunities. Second is economic stability, and then recognition of the work as a nurse. Because when you train as a nurse, especially from somewhere like AIMS or PGI or from any hospitals in India, your training is based on some of the books which is written by Americans or people from European countries, and the standard is quite high. The training standard in India is quite high. And here also people ask, how did nurses get trained in India? What sort of training you undertake? They are fascinated by the Indian nurses coming to UK, and I'm sure that's same for US as well, because the training is just excellent. So what happens once a nurse is trained and going to nursing to work in a ward? You're entering into a completely different area, and I hope you all understand. I mean, understand that this is the situation. You are in a completely different area. Your work is completely different, and so I'm not going to get into the detail of that. So that actually motivated me to go and look for another career opportunity. Because when I was studying nursing, we were encouraged to read a lot of articles. And I still remember the date when I read an article about a nurse prescriber. So nurses are prescribing in US. Yeah. So then I thought, okay, I just wanted to get into a position where I could do some more autonomous practice. So when I came to UK, I came to work as a staff nurse in specialty medicine. So that was in 2002. For 3 years, I worked there as a staff nurse, mainly gastroenterology ward. So one thing which I have, I could use the entire skills I have learned from India. I could use the experience I've learned from neurosurgery ward. I worked with some amazing nurses in the neurosurgery ward, which I have to say, learned a lot of new clinical skills, which made my way easier to work as a nurse in the gastro ward. The only difference I found there in that ward compared to India was the recognition a nurse get, and the autonomy a nurse get, and the holistic approach you give to a patient. So here what I noticed was you work for the patient, you work for the quality of care to deliver to the patient. You don't work for a doctor, or you don't work for a physio, you don't work for a nurse, you work as a team for that patient. So nobody would feel that they are working for somebody else. You are working to make that patient better. And you have a lot of autonomy in there. So you might already know about this, but in UK, what happens is for a patient to get discharged, it's a multidisciplinary approach. Imagine you have the most senior doctor come and says that the patient can be discharged today. And the nurse come and say, I am not happy to discharge the patient because the patient does not have somebody to look after him at home. So the patient wouldn't get discharged. The physio says, I'm not happy to discharge the patient will not get discharged. So it's a multidisciplinary approach. Everybody respects each other and their decisions. So that is something which I absolutely loved and is loved in UK. And I'm sure that we are on our way about that, because I've left India like 20 years now. Things must have changed. But when I was working, that was not the situation. So I hope it was changed. And I'm saying in here because I know you are the leaders of nurse education, and I think you are the leaders who can change the culture in India among nurses, and that is the way we can develop nursing career and nursing profession. Okay, so then I was inspired by my colleague, as Rita Ma'am says about Manju. She moved to clinical research. I think she was one of the first research nurse from my trust to get into there. So I followed her path and I became a senior clinical research nurse. So what this role is, as Rita Ma'am says, it's not as established clinical research in India. So clinical research is where you have where you'll be working on early phase clinical trials. So it could be a phase 1 or phase 2 clinical trial. It could be a later phase clinical trial developing a new medicine. So for example, COVID vaccine. So I am currently working on a different type of COVID vaccine. That was a phase 1 first in human study. So we do have the system and infrastructure and everything to do this. But this is a doable thing for any country as well. So as a nurse, so here the difference is, as a nurse, a clinical research nurse leads the project. Okay, so she is the study lead, or he is the study lead, and you will have doctors, radiographers, or whoever is required for that protocol working on it, pharmacy, labs, but the lead is the research nurse. So quite autonomous role, but I was just not happy with just be sticking on that role. So one thing was there were some actions which a nurse could not undertake. Say, for example, performing a physical examination or prescribing a drug or order a diagnostic test. That has to be done by a medic. So what happens at that time was we had increase in demand of studies. So there were a lot of studies coming. So as I said, clinical research brings economy to the country. So in this country in 2010, 2009-10, that time, they have put the research and innovation in the forefront of the NHS agenda. That means you will bring a lot of money to the country as well. So that meant that we had lots of studies coming over to UK. So that we didn't have enough medical workforce to support those studies, and that needed something innovative to deliver those studies. So here comes the idea of advanced practitioner. So by that time, advanced practitioner role is established in some other areas like A&E, like casualty or here we call it as accident and emergency. It was established in as medical assessment units, cardiology, ITU, but never in clinical research. So we had a lead nurse who was so innovative and passionate about these roles in research. So she developed the role, and I was then, it was a competitive process. Then I got selected to train as an advanced practitioner in 2011, supported by my employer. And then I qualified so end of 2013 to work as an advanced clinical practitioner in clinical research. And by God's grace, I would say there were a lot of other people must have been there who was qualified enough to do this. But I was the first person in the United Kingdom to train from a research facility as a clinical research advanced nurse practitioner. So next slide. So now moving on to some of the important aspects about what is advanced practitioner role. And these are all UK-based definitions and UK-based policies and principles of working. So advanced clinical practice is delivered by experienced registered health and care practitioners. I would come back to you why I have said health and care practitioners. It's a level of practice characterized by a high degree of autonomy and complex decision making. So I will come to each statement of this definition later on in the slides, but I just wanted to touch on the level of practice. It is not, advanced practice is not a person doing, say, for example, a nurse doing a lumbar puncture. That is not called an advanced practice, it's only one element. It's a level of practice in various levels, in 4 pillars, which I will come also later on. This is underpinned by a master's level award or equivalent that encompasses the 4 pillars of clinical practice: leadership and management, education and research, with demonstration of core capabilities and area-specific clinical competence. It's a complex definition, and I hope by the end of this session, you should be able to make out what it actually means. So this definition requires health and care professionals working at the level of clinical practice to exercise a high level of autonomy and decision making. That is the most important about this role is complex decision making, complex clinical judgment skills and autonomous practice, because you are responsible for any actions, you're accountable for any actions you have done. That is same for everyone. It's not, don't even have to be an advanced practitioner. A nurse who is doing the vital signs is responsible for that actions. If the temperature is 38.5 and you have not reported it or you have not acted on it, you are responsible for your actions, and you cannot put that on a doctor or anybody else who is on the shift. It's your responsibility. So everyone is accountable and responsible for your actions. I don't think advanced practitioner role is any different than that. Okay, just a bit of a brief background into clinical, the key drivers for advanced practice in UK, and I'm sure you can relate some of these to our Indian way as well, because these pressures and these workload demands are same for all over the world, I think. So if you think about it, advanced practitioner role developed in the US in the 1970s, but in UK it is in the 1990s, okay, to ease the workload of primary care physicians. We call them as general practitioners. So what are the main problems? Or so there's an increased service and workforce demand because of an aging population, so growing number of aging population, increase in the incidence and prevalence of long-term conditions. So people living with long-term conditions need multiple hospital admissions or attention, which is cannot be met by the medical workforce itself. Growing public demand, inefficient health systems and rising healthcare cost. Definitely medical workforce shortage, low retention and recruitment rates, that could be true for both the medical and the nursing workforce. An increase in availability of new health technologies and treatments, that would mean that you can do more to reduce the avoidance of accident and emergency admissions, to enable care closer to home, and to offer a 24/7 service. These are the key drivers for advanced practice nurses in UK. So As with everything else, nurses have always responded to the healthcare needs of their patients and community and developed their roles accordingly. And advanced practitioner role is no different. Nurses led the change to develop an innovative role that would sort of cover the medical workforce shortage. That is by training and by constant supervision and empowering nurses to achieve those dreams. So in both ways it works. It offers a career progression for the nurses. It also helps the economy. It also helps the medicine in the larger scale. So most actively engaged in direct patient care, nurses are positioned to at the best to lead all these changes. And just to have a look at some of these pictures, I've just put intentionally. You can see that if we all travel in the right direction, there is no change happens. Everything is smooth. There is no problem. So one person decide to change it, yeah. And then especially on the second one, everybody is going in one direction. This one person who is deciding to change it can cause a bit of a turbulence. These roles have come, please don't think that it has come just smoothly. There were lots of challenges. There were lots of barriers for the leaders who has developed these roles. But actually now I think in India, we are in a better position because we can use experience from other countries and knowledge from other countries in developing these roles in India. So this is Health Education England, who is looking after all the advanced clinical practice workforce in UK. So the vision of Health Education England for this workforce was to enable a skilled and knowledgeable advanced clinical practice workforce to be used effectively to enhance the capacity of the existing health workforce to ensure a quality service for patients now and in the future. This is based on the 4 pillars of advanced practice. So clinical practice, education or facilitating learning, leadership, and research. So they have to have in all areas of these 4 pillars, IACP has to work in high level, providing quality service. So this is the multi-professional advanced clinical practice framework. And you will, hopefully you can understand more about the 4 pillars when I talk about my role a bit more detail. And also this advanced clinical practice is for not just for nurses. It's okay. So we have advanced clinical practitioners in pharmacy, clinical practitioners in physiotherapists, radiographers, so many other paramedics. So there are a lot of other professions joining this course because you can develop your potential with this course according to the service needs. So an important aspect of the ACP role is that it can be shaped to address complex and dynamic healthcare needs. So when I have done my course, there was a physio in the course and she was interested in MSK. So when she qualified, she will still be working as a physio, but she will be running a clinic to herself, taking medical history, doing physical examination, injecting prescribing the steroid possibly and injecting the steroid into the knee. So she can actually sort that patient out completely and you don't require another physio or another nurse or another doctor to do this bit and that bit. So this can be completely done by this person. So this is how it works, giving a holistic patient care to that patient. So how, for the interest of the NS educators, there are many pathways to train on advanced clinical practice as an advanced clinical practitioner in the UK. So when I was doing the training, this was the only route which was available, or maybe according to my knowledge, that was only available was employer funded route, MSc in advanced practice. So I was funded by my employer. The funding was the employer got is from Health Education England. It was a 2-year program. I've studied in University of Salford. So it was work-based learning. So 2 days in the university, 3 days at the workplace. There is another program now, which is more common, is apprenticeship, MSc in advanced clinical practice. So apprenticeship has flexible in nature. So you could do it in 2 years or 3 years. So if you're doing a 2-year program, you will attend 2 days in the university, rest in the clinical practice. If you're doing a 3-year program, so you're doing 1 day in a clinical practice, 1 day in university for 3 years, and the rest days you are at the workplace. So this is to suit the needs of the person and also to suit the needs of the organization or the department you're working for. So there is another route is equivalence route. So I know some people have done the modules, which is actually in the MSc Advanced Clinical Practice module as standalone modules and work their way up to an advanced clinical practitioner role. So these are the main 3 ways which I came across for pathways to train. If you do need any more information on that, I'm happy to give outside this meeting. Okay, so I have, just 1 second. So this is my it was my program at that time. So this is, so we had 3 semesters, so year 1 and year 2, and I have to develop a portfolio throughout. So in year 1, we have learned pathophysiology. So basically a deeper cellular level pathophysiology, and you would also brush upon your anatomy and physiology in there. So contextualizing advanced practice. So in that, it's a framework to consolidate generic competencies of advanced practice, develop leadership skills, managing risk, and critically appraising your job description. So this was involved in semester 1. So in terms of the assessment, we had a number of exams. We had a number of poster presentations, Viva case, OSCEs observed. It's like a practical exam, so examining each system like that. So then second semester is non-medical prescribing. Now this is changed. So when I have done it, it was not non-medical prescribing. Now they have included non-medical prescribing in the MSc Advanced Practice. I had to do it separate. So where the practitioner is able to prescribe after successful completion of this course. Throughout the year 1 to year 2, you will be developing a portfolio based on your 4 pillars of clinical practice. So you should have enough evidence for your clinical, your leadership, your education, and your research pillars. And then that is marked as well. And that comes into your year 2 practitioner competence, which is showing up your portfolio. You will also have a clinical reasoning module where you will be expected to learn a number of cases and do a presentation, and there is an exam on your clinical reasoning skills. Research methods is where you propose a research project for using the research methods to do a quantitative or a qualitative research during that. So in this course, the difference to other master's courses here, this is very clinical. This is heavily clinically oriented course. So the basic of the course is to replace the, I don't like to use the word, it's an advanced role for nurses, but in a sense, you're replacing the role of a medic. So that is also, it's very clinical role. So in here, you have to work under a consultant for this. So you have to identify, your employer will identify a consultant to work with you. So who will act as a supervisor or an assessor? If I remember it right, I had to have at least 30 or 40 assessed cases by the consultant. So 40 cases, or during the 2 years, you have to perform in front of the consultant and get it signed off. Then you have to make another maybe sort of 100 or more cases in your portfolio as well. That is just your clinical, just 1/4 of your clinical section is all your cases. So that is in a nutshell how this semester, how this course looks like for advanced practitioners in UK. Just 1 second. So ways to train. The clinically specific components are driven by patient safety, efficiency, and service transformation. ACP's portfolio evidence effective clinical learning or progression. So your portfolio is marked at various stages. So marked in year 1 at twice, year 2 about all semesters. So this is a continuous process which is getting assessed every time. Work-based learning, as we have said, that it's mainly clinically oriented. So work-based learning Capability development and educational clinical supervision have revolutionized clinical skill acquisition in the workplace. So you do learn a lot from being in the clinic. So because advanced clinical practice has it's not into one area, you're not actually specializing in one area. An advanced practitioner training out can work in an A&E, she can go to work in a respiratory area, similar areas you can work. But I wouldn't say, if you ask me to go and work in a cancer care, I would struggle because I have no experience in cancer care. But you can actually work in a lot of areas because it's not defined to one area. You would learn all the systems, you will learn to examine all the systems. And then to complete the course, I had to work with various consultants, various doctors. I mean, consultants are the very senior doctors in UK, in here. So basically, I worked in rheumatology, dermatology, mental health, general practitioners, endocrinology, diabetes. So you have to identify a lot of contacts and work under them so that you get a variety of experience once you qualify, because the area I work in requires a varied experience, not just one specialty. Trust, respect, and mutual understanding is built training side by side in service. So as I said, everybody respects each other. Each doctor whom I work with see my role is a very important role, and they see how important that is for the NHS or the organization whom I am working for, and for the patient care. So that the trust is built on your mutual respect. My screen, I think, just froze. Just 1 second, sorry. Okay, here you go. Okay, role development initial steps. So this is actually a slide by my line manager years ago, where she's developed this role, and she was talking to, I think it was in one of the conferences, how she has developed this role in NHS in my place where I work. So initially, she had to develop a draft plan, which has to be signed off by the executive. So that could be your medical director. You could have lots of senior nursing officers who will be in a committee, and they need a signing off by them. You need to have a role description of the role, or a job description, what this person is going to do once she qualifies. You needed to have reason for developing the role. So why do you need an advanced practitioner in your area? What is the need? Why cannot somebody else do this? Why do you need a nurse to get to do this? Yeah. So you should have a reason for developing the role. And as I said, our demand for the service was much higher. We didn't have enough doctors to do some of the tasks, and that was our reason to develop the role. Skills and competencies, you need to identify what skills and competencies are required for that particular person to work in the job. So if you're working in a cardiology department, what are the advanced skills that nurse need to learn? If you work in an A&E, what skills that nurse need to learn? So this is important to identify earlier on to help that person to achieve their competencies. Because when this person goes to the course, you will have the same course attended by a nurse from research, a nurse from cardiology, nurse from renal, a nurse from ITU. Everybody sits in the same class. So the workplace have to have some sort of input into what is the expectation from that nurse. So then the nurse can then develop those skills according to the service need. Facilitation of work-based learning, then identification of a mentor, assessor, or a line manager. You're not expecting the person to identify the mentor, which is just to come from high above, not from the student. So the organization or the department, or the lead nurse, have to think that, okay, whom I am going to assign for this student to be the mentor. That is always have to be a consultant or a very senior doctor. Then you need to have governance for this. How do you govern this structure? Whom she is going to report to, or he is going to report to, and what governance structure you have in place for safety, okay, for safety of the practitioner and for safety of the patient. So when she is going to prescribe, what she is going to prescribe, and how safe it is for that person to prescribe that. So they should have some governance in place. Oh, definitely funding arrangements. It's not cheap to do your master's. So what are the funding arrangements, and the sustainability of the role are some of the other things which you might be needed to think about developing this role. Okay, just then now coming to my role in clinical research. This is where I work since 2005. So I started my career as a normal, we call it as band 5 nurse. Band 5 nurse is the lowest band of the nurse. Then I became a band 6, and then I applied for this trainee advanced practitioner role. So so you can see 4 pillars of my role here. So this is direct care, direct patient care. So in a role in education, a role in leadership and management, and a role in research. So in direct care. So I am an independent practitioner to able to assess, diagnose, treat, and refer as appropriate. So I can, so in terms of a patient coming to a clinical trial, I see the patient, I can do the physical examination, I can diagnose if they have any ongoing symptoms, I can treat and prescribe for that patient. I provide on-site medical cover. So when we give the IMP, is called the investigational medicinal product. So it could be phase 1, first in human study. You needed to have a medical cover while the patient is getting a drug at any stage. So I provide the on-site medical cover. I am advanced life support trained, first responder in acute emergency situation. And it doesn't mean that I am the only one there. No, I work in a team of 2 medics and myself. The second medic only joined during COVID. So it was only 1 medic and me, and I am on a medical rota. So it's very different to the nursing rota. So we have a medical rota as well. So I am in the medical rota. Outreach model, bringing research closer to home. So we work with some other organizations to help people to access research closer to home. Then I have some of these advanced skills. So I can perform physical and neurological examinations in clinical trials, patients in clinical trials, ECG review, request radiological investigations, prescribing investigational medicinal products, skin biopsies and suturing. I can do ultrasound scans. I can administer intrathecal medications, adverse event assessment. So when the patient is getting a drug, every visit you would ask for any side effects. So these are called the adverse event. Assessment and management of the adverse event. So eligibility assessment and consenting in the CTIM. So consenting in the CTIMs means clinical trial of investigational medicinal product. So I can consent patient into trials. Eligibility assessment, not always, because some sponsors, I mean drug companies like Pfizer or Glaxo, people like that. So they, some of them are not happy for a nurse to do eligibility assessment because the law says, or the GCP guidelines says, this is a medical decision. Yeah. So in those cases, I cannot do eligibility assessment. So now we are working on it to change the law. Because I've attended a presentation in 2011. It was a Royal College of Nursing conference, international conference. We had some eminent speakers from US. And there was one lady nurse, and she said that she started doing things and law followed her. Okay, but it's not all, I mean, we can't always, break the law and work on it. So we have to abide with the law as well. So here I won't do this part of the business because eligibility assessment is part of a medical. Saying that, I have some other colleagues in the country, in UK itself, who is doing eligibility assessment because the organization they work for supports her to do the eligibility assessment. So you can override the laws and the guidelines if your organization supports you, because the guidelines are written at the time of World War. It's not changed, but the medicine has moved on. But some of the terminologies we use, it has to be a medic, it has to be a doctor, because this is written ages ago and this is not changed. So we have now I'm now working with the National Institute of Health Research to change some of the guidelines, which was written before we have all these innovative roles in the UK. As well. So my role in education, so I am very actively involved in staff education. I work as a workforce education lead for my facility. So identification of staff training needs and training them on new protocols, teaching research nurses, junior students, medical students and student nurses. assessment of clinical competencies. I do lead the emergency scenario testing for the clinical research facility. We have actually 3 sites, so I manage all 3 sites. Education and support for patients and families participating in complex trials. And then in my education role, I have done a lot of presentations at local and national conferences. In my leadership and management pillar, so I act as a visible clinical lead. In my role, I do not line manage anyone. So I'm acting as a visible clinical lead, present in the clinical floor during a patient visit. Implementation of evidence-based practice, policies and SOPs development, involved in developing a lot of policies regarding medical care and nursing care for the clinical research facility. I also involved in a clinical audit and change management. So in research, so my role is mainly my direct clinical care is my research care as well. So I'm a sub-investigator on a majority of clinical trials which is coming through our facility. That includes recently there is a new phase 1 COVID study and lots of other COVID studies and non-COVID studies where I am a sub-investigator on. And then doing independent research is something else I need to do, which I have not done an independent research. I think the last research I have done was when I was a student nurse in AIIMS. So not all my own research. It's the work I am doing is a protocol by a sponsor or a big trial, sorry, a drug trial. Okay, so what are the benefits practitioner role contributes to chronic patients assistance as significant qualitative elements. So someone who is having a chronic health problem, it comes as a great help to have continuity of care for those patients. Early detection of health problems and shorter hospitals. So these are all the research findings from the benefits of advanced practitioner roles. Cost effectiveness in many ways, because you have identified the problem early, you treated the problem early, you supported this chronic health problem of that patient, and then cost effectiveness in that way also definitely cheaper than medics. The work of the APN reflected a higher patient satisfaction, better access to health services, and flexibility in care. So this role is a full-time role. So you would be available all the time and you will be on site all the time. So here the difference is you would have to call the medic to come in because they will be covering a lot of other areas. So ACPs are placed in that area. So you are always there and there is an increased flexibility and continuity of care. So what is the advantage of this role in clinical research? So utilizing the full potentials of the ACP roles within the scope of practice will help accelerate clinical translational research findings from bench to bedside by improving outcomes for the service and research delivery. So increase the efficiency of the medical time required for the safe conduct of clinical trials. Increased efficiency of CRFs with innovative use of research workforce and increased capacity. So with my role, we could increase the patient recruitment. We could have a high turnover of patients. There is nobody waiting or hanging around for the consultant to come over because they have a lot of clinical responsibility and they don't have a research specific time. They don't get a research specific time. So they have to, squeeze their clinical time to come and see a patient in research. So then that means a lot of waiting for the research nurses and for the patients. That doesn't happen in our facility anymore with the ACP role. So improving outcomes for patients. So reduction in the patient waiting times, flexibility in care, and most importantly, holistic patient-centered clinical care and research delivery. As a nurse, that is something which every nurse holds, is the holistic patient approach. You don't see the patient as having somebody with a condition. You would look into their physical, their emotional, their spiritual needs of that patient. That means in practical life, if they are going home, how are they going home? Who is there to help them at home? How they're going to manage this medicine at home? And how are they going to take these tablets at home? So I think you would look into every aspect of that patient care and then help that patient to achieve a good quality life as well. So that comes from a nurse. So ACPs can bring that to your clinical care. And increase safety and continuity of care. As ACPs are permanent members of the team, you can offer those continuity of care to those patients. To summarize, there is very little that ACPs, you can also call us ANPs. ANPs are advanced nurse practitioners. In UK, we call it as ACPs, advanced clinical practitioner, because this is not nurses doing this. As I said, we have pharmacists and so many other professionals working at this level. So in UK, we call it now as advanced clinical practitioner. So there is very little that ANPs are allowed to do according to the law. ANPs can assess patient, make diagnosis, provide treatment just like a doctor. ANPs work within a clearly defined scope of practice that is agreed with their employer. So that scope of practice is ultimately important. So even though you can do everything, I can prescribe any drug from the national formulary, but I won't prescribe every drug. If somebody asks me to prescribe a drug which I'm not confident about, which I have no experience about, I will not prescribe those drugs, because I am not expected to prescribe if I don't know about them. Yeah. So you work within a clear defined scope of practice that to ensure the safety of the practitioner and for the patient. ANPs in primary care, community and clinical research are able to develop close relationship with their patients and work in partnership with them to achieve optimum health. So this is people who works in the community areas where they have a very close relationship with the patient, helping to achieve optimum health by regular visits and identifying problems early and working with the patient in order to avoid a hospital admission. So for example, a heart failure patient need constant some sort of treatment. They will be in and out of the hospital many times, but we have specialist nurses who is working in this area and who will be seeing the patient regularly, adjusting their say warfarin if they are on, if any other drugs, and making sure that they are safe so that they don't have to attend the hospital every now and then. So training to be an ANP brings immense role satisfaction. It's very different to any, I think, MS. I mean, all MSs are great, I have to say. It depends on what your interest is. Because I always wanted to be a clinical person. So wanted to be with the patient, providing direct patient care. So this gives me immense role job satisfaction. So it makes me feel better that I am able to meet the patient's needs who is in the clinical trial and be with them throughout their journey in clinical research. So what next? What next for us? If you think about our Indian context, so advancement of clinical practice is reliant on practitioners who are prepared to look to the future, visualize the potential of advanced nursing practice, and pursue that vision. Yeah. So I'm very, very proud and very pleased that I am now talking to a lot of leaders in India, a lot of nurse leaders in India who can take this step forward and develop this role for our Indian nurses. It requires outstanding leadership with innovation, compassion, courage, commitment, and inclusiveness to embark on challenging journey of change, challenge and development. As I said, I wouldn't think it will be a smooth journey transition for one nurse to be from a nurse to an advanced practitioner. There could be lots of challenges, but that, as I said, you have outstanding leaders in India who can lead this change for you guys. Okay, froze again, just 1 second.
I'm sorry to disturb you. I think we are at the verge of conclusion only, right?
Because the last slide actually. I think it's frozen, I think. Here we go. So this is my, I think the final slide. So my role was first role in the UK, working beyond traditional scope of practice, making a difference through translational research. I offered, my career role has offered a new inspiring clinical career pathway for research nurses. And as I said, able to offer high quality, fully informed care to patients and be there throughout their journey with us in this in the study. Okay. So we are the leaders of our time, and let's pave the way for the next generation of amazing nurses to achieve extraordinary things. And thank you so much for listening. And apologies if I have taken so long. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, ma'am, for this word of wisdom. Actually, it was a privilege to hear from you, and we really came to know about the UK context of the advanced clinical practice.
You have to share the screen.
So,
Abhini. She will introduce me after that when she tells me.
So, ma'am, already we are running ahead of time, but I think one question we can take. So, anyone from the panelist or participant would like to ask question? Well, otherwise, ma'am, I would like to know that whether the UK population feel confident in approaching advanced clinical practitioner in place of a medic, or do they like in India? Of course, there will be lots of issues if this if it's this policy is changed and we get the confirmation for the advanced clinical practitioner. Indian population would have so much of taboos. So, do they have similar mentality, or they have just overcome this?
I think in UK also they had similar problems, I assume, but now I think over the years they have overcome this. So if you go to an A&E now, you don't really have a choice. You will get to see an advanced practitioner. Yeah.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, one more thing, like as you said, you are working primarily in the research area, and you get the sponsors from the drug trial teams. So,
Yes.
like as a nurse, if you would like to write your own protocol, or you would like to generate your own research, will you get the similar sponsors as well to support your personal research work?
No, so the trials which I am working are drug trials. So early phase, drug trials only. So we have to, so if I have to do a study which is like observational study, you can do it, and there are sponsors which they can sponsor you for PhD and things like that. But the trials I am working are all drug trials. So which I wouldn't think that which you cannot be a even if you are a medic, unless you are on a very experienced senior clinician, maybe yes, otherwise no. So they wouldn't support that. Because usually the sponsors have their own medical team.
So had it not been a drug trial study, then you would get the sponsors.
Yeah, it depends on what the study is about, what their interest is as well. So if your study has a potential to bring, so I mean, it's recording anyway, but actually if your study has a potential to bring more money or to develop another drug, the sponsors will always look into financial implications as well, isn't it? So yeah, so it is possible, but it's very rare that they would sponsor something like that.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Though we have so much of queries and we really wish to listen more and more from you, but the time is not allowing us. So
no
thank
problem.
you.
Thank you.
Very warm session. Thanks a lot. So now we will move ahead, and I will hand over the session to Professor Shalvina D. Nand, ma'am, who is a principal in College of Nursing, Apollo Hospital, Bilaspur, Chhattisgarh. So ma'am will be proceeding with the further session. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Parul. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
So good evening, one and all. Without taking much time, let me introduce our next speaker. She is none other than Professor Dr. Rita Lakhani, ma'am, and she is currently working as principal at D.Y. Patil University, School of Nursing, Nerul, Mumbai. If we'll talk about educational qualification, ma'am has done PhD in nursing from Krishna Institute of Medical Science, Krishna University, Karad. Ma'am has done PG Diploma in Education Management from SNDT Women's University. Ma'am has done MSc in Medical Surgical Nursing from LTC and SNDT Women's University, and she was the gold medalist. Ma'am has done post-basic BSc Nursing from Institute of Nursing Education, JJ Group of Hospitals, Mumbai, and GNM from School of Nursing, KEM Hospital, Mumbai at the institute level. If we'll talk about the work experience, ma'am has more than 22 years of vast experience in the field of nursing. Ma'am was appointed as the principal of D.Y. Patil School of Nursing in July 2019. Previously, she also holds senior academic and executive positions in 2 other universities, MUHS University and SNDT Women's University, including the leadership of a large college of nursing, Fortis Institute of Nursing, Milan, Mumbai, and she is fully committed to the INC Principles of Ethical Conduct. Her teaching career span, as I already told, 22 years in various faculty positions. In these positions, she had educated nurse midwives and clinical nurses. In a dual role, she have more than 10 years of critical care clinical experience. She has been working as an educator and researcher in higher education since 2003. Her higher education expertise is broad and includes the development and quality assurance of diverse health professionals, curricula, and education innovations such as apprenticeship development with employers for the student post final year exam till they become registered nurses. She has also contributed to many local, national, and international groups in relation to research and professional development. She have an extensive portfolio of pedagogic and clinical research activity with professional publications in the field of professional development and medical surgical nursing. Her interests range across most aspects of the student life cycle. She has been responsible for planning portfolio development, quality assurance and enhancement, home and international student recruitment, and student support. If we'll talk about the awards and recognition, in 2004, she had served as the second investigator in a TNAI co-sponsored research in the state of Maharashtra. She had received the first prize in teachers category among all faculty at the Maharashtra University of Health Sciences for research presentation during Avishkar Convention 2010. She again bagged the first prize in teachers level among the medicine and pharmacy category at Maharashtra University of Health Sciences for research presentation during Avishkar Convention 2015. In 2016, she was chosen to guide 2 students from the University of Montreal to pursue their internship studies comprising research work in India. She had published more than 20 papers in various national and international journals. She has presented various papers in national and international forum as well. She has also received 2 Best Paper Presentation Award and also have been invited to be the speaker and panel members during these forums. She had also received Bharat Vidya Shiromani Award and a Certificate of Education Excellence for outstanding achievement and remarkable role in the field of education on December 18. In 2015 at the International Institute of Education and Management, and a Certificate of Outstanding Contribution in the field of education during Asia Education Sumit Award. In 2016 by Worldwide Achievers, besides being member of various professional organizations, she is the Vice President of Oncology Nurses Association of India and an Associate Editor for its official journal. She is also on the editorial board of CPQ Cancer Journal. She was appointed as a reviewer by a Crimson publisher, New York, USA, for gerontology and geriatric studies, Open Access Journal. She is also an author of book named One Book Chapter and many more. We are honored and blessed to have you with us, ma'am. Now I invite ma'am to enlighten us on the topic Advanced Nurse Practitioner Program, India Context. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ms. Shalvinia, for that extensive introduction. I remember when I sent you a short one-slider PPT describing about myself, you said, no, give me your entire CV. I want to see what I've got to introduce. So I like that attitude that you have presented. Thank you so much. Give me a moment. I'll just share my slide. Can you all see it? Can you all see it?
Yes, ma'am. We are able to see it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, normally for these e-webinars, the first question we have to ask is, are we audible? The second question is my slide visible? So the same thing. Fine. So I'm very, very privileged to be on this webinar series on advanced nurse practitioner paving the way in India. And I think to begin with, I need to absolutely place my gratitude to the pillars who have got this rolling on. So the first set of people is the members of the Society of Cardiac Nurses of India, which is led by Mr. Gopi Chandran as a patron and Mr. Neeraj Kumar as a president. And the second set of people I would like to thank is the members of the Nursing Teachers Association of India, which is led by Dr. Farooq Khan, the president of the association, and of course, the CBS Publishers team. So on the 5th series, the title that's been given to me is Advanced Nurse Practitioner Program, the Indian Context. To begin with, besides the introduction that Ms. Shalvinia has just given about me, I sit on various boards, including the SimLab of my university representing my college. So I do not intend to discuss any approved investigative use of commercial product or device in my presentation. Besides that, I have also conducted one e-conference on nurse practitioner program in India, shaping the future of the nurse practitioner program in India, the way forward. So we had many international speakers, especially from the UK and US, who tried to tell us about the best practices out over there and the scope and impact of the nurse practitioners out over there. We also had a panel discussion where we asked the nurse practitioners who are there in India to tell us how's the nurse practitioner program going on in India and what are their suggestions of growth. We also had a panel discussion where we invited the national leads and asked them whether the Indian ground is fertile to take the nurse practitioner in their places. And we also did gap analysis of the curriculum. We also, towards the end, invited lead people from India to tell us how to promulgate the program. So, since I have had this conference, my presentation today is leaning greatly on the presentations that is done during the conferences, during this conference, and I acknowledge all the speakers for this, since the IPR rights are shared by us. I think Suja has made my presentation too simple, so I can skip off many things. But just a little introduction about what an advanced nurse practitioner means to all of us in India. So we all of us know it's an umbrella term. This is describing the advanced level of clinical practice that is maximizing the use of graduate educational preparation. So your graduate education preparation is not discounted. It further maximizes in-depth nursing knowledge and expertise in meeting the health needs of not just the individual, but the families, the groups, the communities, and the population. Thus, it involves analyzing and synthesizing knowledge, understanding, interpreting, applying nursing theory and research, and developing advanced nursing knowledge and the profession as a whole. So the practitioner, as Suja has very clearly said, must demonstrate core capabilities and area-specific clinical competency. So if I'm a nurse practitioner, critical care, I need to demonstrate the core capabilities that are required in the critical care and even the competencies that are required in this area. And she's very clearly said it's a master's level award that encompasses the 4 pillars of clinical education, management, leadership, and research, which holds true in Indian context too. It's nice to walk a little bit with the history and understand where are we in context to what Suja has just given us an overview about. So when we think about the nurse practitioner program in India, it was started in the year 2002. The government of West Bengal was the first state in India to start NP in midwifery course under the India OS8 project, which provided training for 18 months to diploma based on the essential components of quality midwifery and on the quality maternal and newborn care complying with ICM competencies. These graduate nurses are yet to obtain due recognition. Nonetheless, let us note out over here, for the first time, whether I was a GNM graduate or whether I was a BSN graduate, since I've completed 6 months of my midwifery training out over there, I was given 18 months of diploma, which was on par with ICM competencies, and I graduated out to be a nurse practitioner midwifery. Here, my degree is not equivalent to the master's program, but ICM permits this kind of this kind of nurse practitioner. On the same track, Gujarat government started in 2009 and sanctioned 25 posts of independent midwifery practitioners, but they're still waiting to be appointed. The policy process was delayed for several reasons, which included less drive and shared vision, unconfined about developing an autonomous cadre of midwives, and less space for open dialogue. The reason why there was the autonomous cadre was not being developed, perhaps it could be because they realized when the researches was done that still the nurses lacked competencies in midwifery. Similar steps to train registered nurses in NPM by Telangana, Telangana state was taken up, Kerala, West Bengal, and other states was also undertaken. However, it could not attract the candidates due to the absence of clarity about registration and the nursing councils, the scope of practice, the legal prescription backing, and the employment. The government also came up with expanded role nurses through nurse-led healthcare delivery models. Few institutions in India took up this model of nurse-led clinics. A few extended their roles like stoma nurses, stroke nurses, public health nurses, and diabetic nurse educators. But they are trained in-house and their titles are not protected by any legislation. Indian Nursing Council implemented a nurse practitioner in the critical care program with the approval of the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare all over the country since 2017 to expand the role of registered nurses. So INC signed an MOU with the University of Houston College of Nursing in April 2018. In continuation of that MOU, INC invited 2 faculties from the university to share and guide in the implementation of the nurse practitioner in critical care and a doctorate of nurse practitioner program in India. DNP is yet to start with us. So when we look at advanced nurse practitioner roles, basically there are 2 categories. One is the clinical nurse specialist and the other one is the nurse practitioner. And when we look at both the roles are not much different, except while many of the core responsibilities in medical training are very similar, the National Council of State Boards of Nursing Incorporation found that emphasis of the clinical nurse specialist role tends to be administrative research and program development and orientation to all this, while nurse practitioners tend to focus more on direct patient care. They also discovered a noticeable difference in the frequency with which both nurse practitioners and clinical nurse specialists completed certain tasks. For example, the nurse practitioner who was surveyed, it was noticed that prescribing and adjusting medications, conducting physical examinations, and ordering and interpreting lab tests were crucial tasks in their daily work. In contrast, CNS identified patient advocacy, evidence-based research, and collaborating with interdisciplinary team as critical responsibilities of their work. Another term that I want to clarify out over here is ACP, that's Advanced Clinical Practice. Now, Advanced Clinical Practice is when I have got my nurse practitioner, I go in and practice further, and then I go in for further competency development. So in an ACP program, you will find nurses, physiotherapists, doctors, all going ahead with their advanced clinical practice under one mentor. This level of practice is designed to transform and modernize pathways of care, enabling the safe and effective sharing of skills across traditional professional boundaries. Let's look at an Indian scenario. In Indian scenario, the ANP role was developed within primary care when it was talking about the midwifery practice, and in tertiary care when it spoke about NPCC program. And as we know, the true ANP program, that is the NPCC program, because in midwifery, as I said, even the GNM and the basic BSc nurses together went in for an 18-month program, and it was not a true master's degree, but NPCC is a true master's degree. So ANP was started in 2017. So unlike you have terms like NP, Advanced Clinical Practitioner, Emergency Nurse Practitioner, Consultant abroad, we still have to work through and walk through this path. We are just at the beginning with NPCC program as a first true ANP program. So this is just a highlight about ACP program, which I just mentioned out over here in this slide. So the ACP program is after my registration, after my post-MSc Advancing Clinical Practice, I have developed a portfolio of evidence with high quality supervision to go in for ACP, where I go in for my credentialing further and get my privileges. Now, an NP program in India is the first competency-based program, as we all know. The current basic BSc program, which is yet to be implemented. I've started in my university. So the new basic BSc program is again the second competency-based program that we have in India. So the NP program is 2 years. It gives you a master's degree and you get an NP standard, you get an NP recognition. The aim is to prepare the BNs for advanced practice roles as clinical experts, managers, educators, and consultants, which even Suja told us very, very clearly in her presentation. It's leading to MS degree in the critical care practice. The whole focus is on stabilizing patients, minimizing acute complications, and restoration of health. Of course, the NPCC program picture that I've put out over there besides, It's just got a few changes have been added on to the curriculum. So what were the reasons? Why did it start? The first important reason, let's look at the scenario what Suja presented. She told us similar thing. She said there was supply shortages, particularly of the middle grade doctors. The workforce shortage, such as primary care and emergency care. And we had to meet the SDG goals. So further, the third one was a belief in rolling out best practice around value-based recruitment, training, appraisals, and then giving them accountability to practice. So a nurse who has earned a BSN degree, she's got experience as a registered nurse in her own area of interest, gets enrolled in an NP program. She gets a degree which is equivalent to the master's, and then she goes in for her licensure with the state councils, and the state councils are expected to keep a separate register for the NPs, whereby they are also a part of master's, post PG degree, as well as the NP. Doctorate of Nursing is yet to roll in India. Let's look at the objectives of the NP program. The objectives, as we can see, is very similar to what Suja has just explained to us. She said they assume responsibility and accountability to provide competent care in tertiary care centers. Of course, you have variety of ANPs out over there in UK, so they may not be just in tertiary care, but our NPCC is more in tertiary care. It demonstrates clinical expertise in providing critical care, which includes diagnostic reasoning. So the nurse has to assess, she has to diagnose the patient. She has to see what kind of complex monitoring is to be done and the various therapies that are to be instituted for the patient. She applies her theoretical pathophysiological knowledge and pharmacological knowledge when she's implementing her therapies and carrying out various interventions in the critical care. She also identifies the critical conditions and she stabilizes and restores patient health and again manages complications. She collaborates with other healthcare professionals in the critical care team across the continuum of critical care. Now, this is very significant for us to understand. We do not have an autonomous role over here. So the first NPCC program that's been rolled out in India is more in a collaborative nature. When you look at the curriculum is again very similar to what Suja has told us. So when you look at the curriculum, it's 20% theory and clinical is 80%. So what you have learned in your basic BSc program is not discounted. They have also said, when you are learning in the clinical area, you are just not practicing. You are learning even the theoretical concepts. So you're applying your pathophysiological knowledge. So it does not mean theory is very less and clinical is vast. It is more of hands-on, clear competency developments. So when you look at, you have the core theories. When you look at the core theories, you have something which is theoretical basis of advanced nurse practitioner, evidence-based practice, leadership and teaching. So the second module that is there is advanced practice course, where you learn about pathophysiology, pharmacology, and health assessment. And when you look at the specialty courses, so you have foundations, like in critical care, we have foundations of critical care nursing 1, and further advancement is critical care nursing 2. Let's look at the focus. The focus is still strong on clinical competency, because therefore they have made it as a residency program. The focus is still based on education and training, because they believe training has to be in the clinical area where there is application of theoretical components. And again, the third is advanced knowledge. So ethical background is very, very important. Ethics is important because still the nurse is not practicing independently on her own. So at least ethics binds her to work at a higher professional level. The competencies that she develops in the critical care is again none than what Suja has very clearly explained to us. She said patient selection, admission in the ICU and their discharges, problem identification through assessment, medication, the various therapies, patient's education, knowledge of interaction of therapeutics, evaluation of outcomes and complications, all put together is the job of a nurse practitioner. So as you run through the competencies, the various competencies that have been listed by INC is nothing different from what they have done in UK. So if you look, the nurse can order all these various investigations. She can order various of these therapies that have been listed out over here. She can, on verbal order, administer these drugs, as well as she can give various protocols on her own if the patient needs it after she assesses them. So precisely the advanced level of decision making and problem solving is the key focus. With autonomous practice, there's a lot of autonomy compared to clinical specialist. There is a lot of critical thinking because the nurse has to work quite independently. She's got enhanced skill. There is management and leadership, and she also takes expert advice from the head of the head of the health team, and that's the doctors. Nonetheless, even after such a wonderful curriculum and even after such a wonderful flow that we have had number of institutes offering nurse practitioners in critical care program running low on admissions. The admissions were much higher when it started off. It dipped in 1819. It's picking on 1920, and I find this very promising. The scope of practice. The scope of practice, as said by AANP, which stated that the nurse practitioners could practice independently in various healthcare settings, including primary health center, community health centers, tertiary care hospitals. They can also perform assessment, diagnosis, treatment, and evaluation services without oversight by the physician. However, their roles and legal authority vary between countries. I hope this to see one day in India, and I'm sure it's going to come in. So when you look at the NP care settings, there are various settings. These are the settings that are adopted from US and UK for the simple reason, for us, we just have one NPCC program, and that's in the tertiary care, that's in the critical care setting. And when it comes to the nurse practitioner midwifery, the scope is very well given. The setting is very well given where they can practice at nurse-led midwifery units, and they can then go ahead and become nurse practitioners as they move on at the district level. Now, what are the challenges? Plenty of challenges, because we are just infants. I wouldn't know whether I should call ourselves at infant stage. We are just in the fetal stage, I should say, but we have a gamut, an array of information in front of us, which is willingly given to us by our UK and US and the other countries where NP programs is highly flourishing. We have these colleagues happily telling us, walk through this path because we have treaded through this path. Let's make this path more easier for you. So let's look at the challenges in terms of quality and governance, in terms of nursing curriculum, and in terms of regulations. To begin with, let's look at the recruitment. Do we get the right candidate who are really interested in going for critical care? Critical care is not everybody's cup of tea. The second is accredited university programs and defined pathway. It's a beautiful thing. Our NPCC program is under accredited university, but we need to relook at our nurse practitioner midwifery program. Do we have defined pathways? The pathways are still not very clear for us in growth. Yes, as I said, nurse midwifery practice, they have very clearly told us the pathways. Simulation, the supportive systems and the infrastructure that we require, the simulation labs that we require. Let's have a look. Do we have a sim lab which caters and garners to the skill and competency development of a critical care? The high quality workplace supervision and assessment clarity. Do our teachers and our preceptors in the clinical area, our medical preceptors, do they have a role clarity of what is a nurse practitioner skill competency development? Next, vision is not clear. So when I opened up the NPCC program and I tried to look at the vision, I found it missing. And I feel where there is no vision, I find it very difficult to tread the path. Again, professional and managerial pathway of accountability is also not specified. Examination, portfolio of evidence competencies. Examination is very important. So just like in countries abroad where you have clear-cut boards, the boards are specialized. These boards conduct your exit exam. Do we have something like this? No, we don't have. We still have the examination at the university level. Next is teaching and preceptor role and research philosophy. So when we had this e-conference and when we were talking with the nurse practitioners who graduated out from various colleges in India, they said, ma'am, we are still doing the typical kind of descriptive research, which we do not want to do because we don't have the right kind of guidance. So that's not the research that is expected out of them. Peer support groups and networking, highly important. So when you look at US and UK, they have so many boards who are not only strengthening their stand, but they're lobbying for them, and they dare not do any kind of amendment or changes without consulting them. And finally, perception, nurses and doctors. Do the doctors have got the right perception of how a nurse practitioner should be? Are the teachers who are training NP have the right kind of perception? Curriculum gap analysis. So when I discussed with you all about the governance, I think the governance also enveloped with itself the curriculum. So academic environment, teacher preparation, teacher learning facilities, the public perception. Our public over here in India is very cosmopolitan, culturally varied. Do they really understand that this nurse today can stand as a nurse practitioner and we can approach her just like how we are approaching any other doctor? The students' perception. Can the students come out of the garb of just working under the orders and start thinking critically, which we are trying to develop in them in basic BSc program, in master's program, where we're trying to tell them, you nurse, you as a nurse are a very important and a backbone, a very important component and backbone of the healthcare team. So you need to question everything that comes to you, just not obey orders. Are they ready to come out of that garb? The administrative awareness. Is the administration aware that these are nurse practitioners? So when they come and they're going to start working with us, what kind of responsibilities we give them? What kind of roles do we give them? What kind of salary we give them? What kind of privileging we need to do for them? So are the administrative policies ready for this? Is the clinical practice facilities healthy for the critical care nurse to practice with a full scope? Doctor's perception, nurse's perception. Third one is the statutory regulations. And I think this is very, very important. But I think it's good that we are going slow, because when we have developed the NPCC program, we have not thought about having a complete autonomy. So we have time. Now that we have time, let us think whether we can put in a clear description of what's a nurse. And just like NNMC bill has included NP in nursing profession, can we give her a separate standing? Can we have a scope of practice? Because how will she know what she's got to do? Then again, I'm sure we all will realize when we undergo education and we know this is not important for us, we don't bother to study. But if it is very clearly enveloped in the scope of practice, she will pay attention on that. We need to define what's a nurse clinic. Who can start a nurse clinic? And a nurse clinic should function how? The autonomy, the responsibility, the accountability, all these needs to be specified. And I'm very, very happy the NMMC is going to be very soon instituted, where they will give us all these definitions clearly. We all have to be part of it. The licensure, the updating of the licensure. So if I'm going to be licensed at the state board and the state board is just going to keep a registry, is that sufficient? We also, in the statutory regulations, we also need to address interprofessional responsibility and job description. So if I'm working as an NPCC, what is my interprofessional responsibility? What all I have to do, my job description. In case if there's professional misconduct, negligence, then what about my professional indemnity? Today, nurses feel just because you don't have any legal backing for you, you don't have any scope of practice, so nobody is going to catch you in the legal arena. But that's wrong. You have your ethics. So if you are not following as per your ethics, you will still be called in the court. And we have seen many, many cases in India where the nurses have been asked to present themselves in the court, and they've been asked reasons why they have, why negligency has been shown by them. Again, so it's going to be standing more for the NPCC nurses. Further, the licensing exit exams. Can just a university conduct an exit exam? So each university will have a different exit exam. Shouldn't we have a common board, just like how it's there in the US, UK, and our other contemporary countries, where they conduct a common exit exam and where very clearly the competencies have to be proved. Opportunities of continuing professional development and career pathway. NPCCs today do not know how they have to grow. Yes, there is a doctorate of clinical practice which is going to come in, but when and what? Placements. So what's going to be the cadre? Can we just say you have to work as a staff nurse, or do we give them a special designation? What about their salary? What about their career growth? What about the hospital policies that need to be developed, especially in terms of privileging and credentialing? Today, when nurses come to us in the corporate hospital, as we observe their competencies, they apply for privileging, and based upon how they apply, we confirm their credentials, we confirm the competencies that have been observed by their mentors, and then we privilege them. What about these NP nurses? Nothing has been specified. What about their registration? Just an NP registry has been kept at the state councils. I wouldn't know how many councils have complied with it. Nonetheless, these registers one day will have to be open to public scrutiny. NP associations must come in, absolutely must come in, associations and boards, because they're going to strengthen their stand. They're going to speak for them. They're going to lobby for them. They are going to recognize them. So dare not an amendment take place without them. Just like how we have a Trained Nurses Association of India as a strong body standing along with ministry as well as INC, trying to improve nursing curricula. So lobbying is also going to be very important for them, for which strong leadership, as Suja said, is very, very important. So the nurses, for successful integration of ANPs, we require a lot of visibility. So you need to have specialized boards. You need to raise the awareness of the functions of ANP. So we have to keep on speaking about nurse practitioners. And I'm very, very happy this forum has started where we are getting sensitized, as Dr. Gopinath has told us now. We need to decide how they are going to fit themselves in this multi-generational workforce. We need to look at their full scope of practice. We need to see how they're going to be a part of the business of healthcare and ethics. We need to clearly define their roles. We need to think about their quality and as well as their safety and absolutely their leadership. They need to exert strong leadership. So if we are able to pull in all these strings together, we will be able to successfully integrate the ANPs in India. Benefits. I think I've just put in a very few benefits. Suja has very clearly told us about the benefits. So whether it is supporting development, whether it is best patient care, best outcome, many, many benefits have come out through researches. Benefits to with an employer perspective. So staff retention, enhanced patient care, improve patient care, expanding the scope, reducing waiting times. It has been proved those nurses who are there in the emergency have worked fantastically to reduce the patient's waiting time. So 3 areas that we need to focus on is competencies and dependability, autonomy, privileging, and credential. And things are not difficult to change. So thank you. Before I thank, let me once again reiterate what I've been saying. We need not reinvent the wheels and we need to take lessons from abroad because they have treaded the path. So rather than trailing and failing and using trial and error methods, we have our colleagues, contemporary colleagues abroad who are there to support us. And let's pick up all these lessons and walk through our path quickly. Thank you so much. I'm open for any kind of questions that can come my way.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for this wonderful presentation and for enlightening us on the topic. So with your permission, can I start with the question and answer session?
Yes, dear.
So the one query is there by Ms. Stella Mary that ANP is equal to MSc nursing or lower. Both are 2 years program after BSc. ANP, how to update them to doctorate if we do ANP or MSc nursing in abroad, whether it is accepted in India.
Okay, so many questions treading along in this one question. If I miss out something, do help me out. Let me start off with the first aspect. The first aspect is very clear. You have masters in nursing in India and you have an ANP program. Now, if you're doing masters in nursing and you start working in the clinical area and start practicing that specialty, like for example, I'm a cardiothoracic nurse and I choose to work in the cardiothoracic area as a nurse specialist, then you can't call me as a nurse practitioner. But as I start working in that organization and the doctors develop a lot of confidence in my competency, they will start privileging me. They will start privileging and tell me, okay, go ahead, do this, do this. And I'm sure many of us are doing that. But if you talk about a nurse practitioner program, that's a different program. The competencies are different. The curriculum is different. We just have one right now, as I said, NPCC. So that gives you a degree which is equivalent to master's. Now, if you have attained any master's program abroad and you wish to practice in India, you need to get an equivalence from INC. You cannot directly practice. So just like if I want to go and work in UK, the UK people will not allow me to work. So we have an equivalence exam. So that equivalence exam or equivalence competency have to be proved, and then you can go ahead with it. Did I answer the question or did I miss out anything?
No, ma'am, you have answered it. So
just one more point, please remember, we also have nurse practitioner midwifery. As I've made myself very, very clear that though it's a practitioner program and it is actually being accepted by International Confederation of Midwives, but it's not equivalent to MSc, but you are a practitioner and you can practice in midwifery.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah.
The next query is ANP job prospects in India.
Oh yeah, that's a lovely question. So the conference that I had, and during the conference when we asked all the national nurse leads, so we had national nurse leads from various corporate hospitals. It was very difficult to pull them together, but we did succeed on them. And then we asked them this question. And one thing that came out very clearly is, give us that training program. We will train the nurses because our setting is different and the setting where the nurses are getting trained is different. Give us that training program and we will start taking NPs and we are happy to take them. The second thought that came out was very interesting. What they said very clearly is, for a nurse to become an NP requires a 2 years program. So today you have a lot of takers for basic program after COVID has struck. So your GNM program is going full, your basic PSC program is going full, and everybody is now vying to go abroad because UK, US, Ireland, all doors are opened up. So a nurse thinks, why should I go in for an NP program and put in another 2 years? She feels, okay, I've graduated out from a given college. I have now time to clear my OET, clear my competency exam for UK and let me fly off. So we have very few takers for this particular reason, for master's program, for post-basic program, and for NP program. One thing that has saved NP program versus the diploma program that we had earlier. I'm sure even you know that the diploma programs have all failed. We have got 16 diploma programs cleared by INC, but all have failed because they're not residency program. I do not want to leave my practice and come and take up a diploma program. Keeping that thought process in mind, today, INC has changed all diploma programs into residency program, and NP program has also become a residency program. So those of the nurses who do not wish to go abroad for various reasons can now take up NP program, can now become a nurse practitioner and also get an equivalent MSc program.
Yes, ma'am. And the last one is, ma'am, what is the age limit to join ANP after BSc nursing? How many years of experience needed after BSc nursing to join ANP?
Yeah, so INC has very clearly told us that you require 1 year of clinical experience. Midwifery has told very clearly that you require 2 years of clinical experience. So if I've done my GNM program, and since I have got a lot of desire to become a midwife, and since all of these midwife programs are being conducted under the government institutes, I don't have to pay much. I get an NP degree. I go in for that, and that requires 2 years of experience. But the 2 years of experience needs to be in the midwife unit. Versus NPCC. NPCC requires 1 year of clinical practice in the critical care area, and then you can go in for NP program. The age limit, if I'm not really mistaken, is 40 years, but I'm not too confident of this answer.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much once again for this wonderful presentation and for answering all our queries. Thank you, ma'am.
God bless you. Thank you so much.
Now, on behalf of Nursing Teachers Association of India, I would like to thank our eminent speakers, Ms. Sujamul Subin and Professor Dr. Rita Lakhani, for an outstanding presentation. I would also like to express my deep sense of gratitude to Dr. L. Gopichandran, patron and founder, president of Society of Cardiac Nurses, Mr. Neeraj Kumar Swankar, chairperson and president of Society of Cardiac Nurses, Dr. Farooq Khan, president of Nursing Teachers Association of India, and the entire hardworking and enthusiastic team of Nursing Teachers Association of India. I would also like to acknowledge my sense of gratitude to Ms. Denny Thomas, co-chairperson and secretary of Society of Cardiac Nurses, Ms. Parul, coordinator and moderator of Society of Cardiac Nurses, and Ms. Pratigya from CBS Publication for organizing this wonderful 5th webinar series on advanced nurse practitioner. Thank you so much. Over to you, Parul.
Pratigya ma'am, you can take over.
Okay, sure. So it has been a great pleasure to see all the speakers speak on various topics related to nursing. And I am honored to be part of such a distinctive initiative taken by Society of Cardiac Nurses and NTA for helping the nurses learn more about several topics of advanced nursing practice. And I would like to share that we believe in taking new initiatives like the Society of Cardiac Nurses, and we aim to provide quality nursing education. And I'm glad to share our 3 major accomplishments, which is Nursing Knowledge Tree, where we have published quality nursing books by topmost faculties and institutes. Then Nursing Next Live, the next level of nursing education, and the first digital platform to provide quality nursing education. And last but not the least, Nursing Next Social, which is India's knowledge sharing networking platform to connect all the faculties and provide them education through webinars, and also give them a chance to become author, contributor, reviewer. So I would finally like to thank all the associate and NTA members and our respected speakers for sharing their knowledge. And we cannot end this webinar by thanking our lovely audience members who were so patient and interactive and made this webinar a huge success. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all. Thank you, Pratigya ma'am. Thanks to all the dignitaries. So I think this was a wonderful session, and we had a great knowledge about the Advanced Nursing Practitioner Program, paving the way to India. And we really wish that with our joint efforts, with the blessings and guidance of our senior, we will also lead the advanced clinical nurse practitioner role in India as well. So with this, we look forward to meet you soon in the next webinar. And now, Pratigya, we can end the meeting. Thank you all.
Sure.
Thank you all. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Sujay,
you,
it was
ma'am.
nice. It was nice being with you.
Yeah, same as you.
For
Very,
us
very
also, same here.
very inspiring talk, Dr.
Yeah.
Rita Lakshmi. Very
Thank you
inspiring.
so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.